Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast, and we're looking at NBA action. We got best bets in this episode for Monday in the NBA with 10 games on the slate. We also got play of props up in a separate episode, so make sure you are subscribed to that page and continue to follow along the rest of this season with us. Nate, we are looking pretty good so far. The play of props have done a little bit better, but we are getting a bit more data here as we're only on like barely a week of the season, right? So let's go ahead and get into your first best bet here for Monday.
Yeah, I mean, a bit more data. I got the same kind of look here for both sides, which is that we saw the NBA is giving us these this immediate rematch type situation. And for the Rockets, which is the first pick here, Rockets -2.5 at Spurs, we saw them sputter early, make some adjustments, and then just dominate down the stretch. So I will back them to pull off the win with a complete game here. They are the superior team. The Spurs are not, immediately ascending to contender status by any means, just because they have Wemby. And especially down the stretch, we saw like that Chris Paul, like clutch time offense was not going well. Like the Rockets were just like forcing him into bad situations, into turnovers, into bad shots. And they outscored him 37-22 in the fourth quarter, nearly pulled off that comeback. I don't think we'll get a 10-point second quarter or anything that abysmal from these Rockets early in the game, which is how they fell into such a deep hole. Ime made some adjustments, like I said. I mean, Şengün basically got benched because he ain't getting anything done down low against Wemby. So put Jabari Smith out there, and that certainly fixed things. I wouldn't necessarily hammer Şengün unders because he's talented enough to get in there, and there might be a bit of double think there in terms of what Ime does. But like more so, this is like I could see Ime Udoka like challenging manhood in the locker room type between games, right? I mean, it's just like you're going to come out and you're going to play more physical against a team that did call you out a little bit before this series of games. Sohan, kind of, throwing down the gauntlet, saying like they're gonna handle the Rockets or whatever. But look, this Spurs offense is the main reason to fade, right? And Trey Jones is now out on top of Devin Vassell. So, I mean, they're now going to be playing maybe 4 power forwards at once. At like Sohan, Keldon Johnson, Harrison Barnes, all on the floor at the same time equals a good defensive situation, but the spacing is so they go 8 for 20 from 3, but only getting up 23s in this NBA is not going to cut it, right? And they depended on the Rockets missing open threes. That probably will regress. So I just don't think that the Spurs offense is good enough to compete with what we consider to be a playoff caliber team in the West right now.
Yeah, I concur. I was kind of ready for the last game for the Spurs to surprise people, to be honest. Division rivalry, they still have the chip on their shoulder. Trey Jones missed last game as well, by the way. And he's going to be out in this one on top of Vassell. I think a big part of this is the threes that you're talking about. The Spurs' terrible three-point defense since last season. Don't know that they did enough to get better. Obviously, Keldon Johnson being in there means a bigger body, bigger wing than Trey Jones. Don't think that matters that much, and they are already bottom 5 in terms of allowing 3-point attempts. And to your point, a lot of those were considered pretty open. So yeah, there's probably going to be some positive regression coming for Houston, and I think they definitely figured out the set. I was surprised this was a 3-point game. I didn't continue watching or keeping track of it at all after the first half. They were down by like 20 points, and I was like, okay, I guess the Rockets are giving up. They clearly figured it out in the second half. Went back and looked at it and was like, oh wow, they just played suffocating defense. Ime, like you said, clearly ripped somebody up, or all of them, and they figured it out from there. But let me go to a game that is going to be probably void of defense. That is the Wizards, and they are playing the Atlanta Hawks. Tough loss for the Hawks yesterday, who played pretty well against OKC. And I'm not worried about them coming off of a back-to-back and playing here for the over at 233.5. I'm fine with you look at Hawks and Wizards and you go, they don't guard guards. Neither of these teams guard guards at all. They want to play with pace, and they're going to find ways to get their shooters open, which is the Wizards have a bevy of those this year, if nothing else, which I would say actually nothing else besides a bevy of shooters. I think the total at 233.5 has like roughly 2.5 points of value. I think it should be probably closer to about 235.5. Games averaged 141 to 121 last year. That's 245 totals for those of you keeping track. Over in 3 of 4. not much different about these two teams this year. I mean, the Hawks definitely, Dyson Daniels is a huge upgrade, I would say, and we'll see what happens when Bogey comes back. But I would rather have the athletic long defender standing next to Trey than the old dude who's a shooter and Bogey. Love you, Bogey, but just saying. So I think that's going to continue to help them, but that just also increases their pace. Bogey slows down their pace a ton. Dyson Daniels has sped up the pace of this starting lineup. Both these teams in the top 5 in pace. The pace between these two teams averaged about 101 last season. So you know that they're going to keep playing with that level of speed. And the Hawks, like I was saying, not scared of the no rest situation because they still don't have much D. They actually give up 121 points per game on no rest last season, scoring a buck 16. So it still gets you to about 237 there. And I think the being outscored like that on no rest is not something I'm worried about against the Wizards. This team is probably going to be as bad as advertised. It's tough to see too many teams outside of maybe the Blazers, although they had a nice win last night, and the Nets overcoming, the fail for flag, as I'm calling it, series sweepstakes for next season. But there's still going to be a good amount of pace in this one. And last thing here is just the Wizards, man, they're right back on their BS, like just going right into what it is. It's 104 pace. There's other teams like the Bulls are playing 110 pace. We all know the first couple games of the season, it's going to look way inflated. That's going to come back down to 100 and below 100 pace for average on the season for most of these teams. Wizards are probably sticking around 102 to 104 on their pace for the whole season. They can't stop anybody. They might as well try to outscore them. That's going to continue to be the case in this one too.
Yeah, you mentioned the numbers last season. That includes a really weird outlier of 99 points from the Hawks. So that otherwise they were up there around 120.
Yeah.
I think if you are concerned about anything, it's Washington scoring. Against
Agreed.
Dyson Daniels kind of injects a lot of great defense at the point of attack
True.
for Atlanta. So I mean, the Atlanta team total at 120 might be the look if you're worried about that. I mean, they've been a home road splits for years team, and they got 120 and 125 so far at home. So opportunity maybe buy a little low after they were in OKC last night. So yeah, I mentioned same kind of look here, which is a team to follow up on the momentum from last game. Lakers are now plus 3.5. It moved kind of through that key number of 3 and plus 140 on the money line, which I will put a half unit on that as well. Against the Phoenix Suns, it looks like Bradley Beal will be back here, but I think that there's just not enough down low for the Suns to deal with what JJ Redick and these Lakers are doing, which is just playing through Anthony Davis, right? I mean, and the Suns, again, it's a shooting regression situation where the Suns were just absolutely on fire in the first half on Friday night, and the Lakers still came back from 22 down because they just fed AD, right? I mean, Nurkic just unable to do anything. Minus 19 and 18 minutes. It's hard to do. Maybe we see more Mason Plumlee because of that. But I mean, at this point early in the season, Suns are bottom 10 in paint points allowed, fast break points allowed. I don't really expect that to change much. I expect their offense to maybe start to get better here as they get more used to Bud's system. But so far, it's still been kind of the old Phoenix Suns offense. Like, I'm not buying too much into them pulling it out against Dallas, which is also working through their own stuff and their own adjustments. Like, Booker's still kind of a little uncomfortable, shooting 43%. They still have the 7th highest turnover rate. They've attempted the fewest field goals per game, depending on free throws. And the Lakers are not really going to put you on the line. They're not going to turn it over on the other end. They're playing like they just all know their roles, right? And it's just like so very clear. Like that's what Redick's emphasis is as a basically a role player Hall of Fame guy. Like he's just like, look, you know what you are, D'Angelo Russell, like Austin Reeves, like get in where you fit in. And it's just fit. It's been pretty seamless. So, I mean, the Suns, who were the worst fourth quarter team in the league somehow last year, still slightly below average, and the Lakers are number 1. So if you're going to get into a close game and you're going to give me a team that's just already kind of found an identity and can score in the fourth quarter, I'll take the underdog.
Dude, the Lakers are good. I think the emergence of Rui Hachimura is huge. I don't think that's false fool's gold at all. I think like you said, everybody knows what is expected of them. Like D'Angelo Russell, even. I mean, guys that you wouldn't have considered able to just sort of fit in seamlessly are looking like they know their role. We're not talking about D'Lo getting traded yet because he's not trying to outdo what the Lakers are capable of. He's not a negative by being around anymore. And that's That's kind of the biggest thing here. I'm so impressed, man. I mean, I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but I do think JJ Redick seems to know what he's doing. I'm just going to say that part after 2-3 games. That's all I'm saying for now. But they're looking good, and I like this look here for you. So I'm going to finish with a same game parlay that I put together here, Nate, from the Cavaliers, excuse me, and the Knicks game here. A slobber knocker to be sure. So I'm kind of playing. We'll see, but I'm playing this as a slobber knocker still. I kind of have to believe in it. It's going to be different. It's not going to be Mitch Robb versus Jay Allen. I get that, but it is going to be Cat and Jericho Sims against that big line. I'm going with two players, Josh Hart, 8+ boards, alongside Darius Garland, under 7 assists. I think his assist line is way too high. I've been trying to figure out how to play this with something else because it's -145 to take the under on Garland's assist by itself. So what do I want to get in with this? Well, I love Josh Hart rebounds as well, and there's a couple reasons. So starting with the Hart rebounds, actually, one of the main reasons I love it is this is the archetype of player that does better rebounding against a gigantic Cavs front court, right? Like Mobley and Allen. We still haven't really seen them staggered, to be honest, a little bit like last season, but not more so than last season. It's still both of them on the floor very consistently together. And Josh Hart's the type of player that comes in offensive, defensive rebounds and just is flying in while these other bigs are trying to deal with the bigs of Cleveland. It's what we talked about in the playoffs a bunch last season with the Magic as well, with some smaller guys coming in and getting those rebounds, guys like Jalen Suggs, who are athletic and can jump around the rim like Josh Hart can. As far as 8 boards goes, like if you're just looking at the first 2 games, second game, very Josh Hart playing against the Pacers, loves that type of stuff, right? Then you look at the first game, 4 rebound chances because it's hard to rebound when the Celtics don't miss and break records for shooting, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not going to hold that one against him at all. I'm just going to go right into the next one and go, yeah, he's back, dude. He's going to be at 36 minutes a game this season, with or without Mitch Robb. There's nobody else that does what he does at this point. Like DDV was close to that in terms of at least being like an athletic offensive rebounder who's coming out of nowhere. Nobody else on this team is really looking like that. OG not really prioritizing rebounding. He's supposed to be a shooter and a defensive stopper. So I love Josh Hart to keep getting boards alongside Cat. Probably as good of a rebounder as Cat, who woke up last game. And this Knicks team will be a lot better on defense and rebounding moving forward. Let's be very clear. They have not looked good yet. The Celtics game really skewed all their stats up to date. So, but as far as Darius Garland goes, the 6.5 is so high. If you look at his first 2 games of the season, he's only averaging 8 potential assists. So it's still this clunky backcourt with Cleveland, to be honest. Like they still don't look that good together in terms of Donnie Mitchell and Darius Garland. And Donnie Mitchell is at about 5-6 potential assists himself. And it's just sort of a crapshoot who's going to be sort of diming up. So there's a little bit of, there is risk. There's always risk. We're betting. But there's risk to the idea that like the Knicks will hone in on Donovan Mitchell. That'll give Darius Garland space, and he'll use that space to assist rather than score. I'm not going with that narrative at all. I still think that the way that the Knicks are playing that defense is definitely trying to protect the paint a lot more so than worrying too much about the 3-point line. We've seen them be decent at defending the 3, but their whole thing is a funnel to the basket and hoping that their defense down low is as good as it can be. I think Darius Garland's going to have the floater game available to him all night, and he's probably going to be receiving some spot ups as they focus on Donovan Mitchell's defense a little bit more, or focus on him on defense. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying. I mean, I think that there is something to be said with the Cavs playing through Evan Mobley a little bit more, who I really like in this game, despite the tougher matchup. But I mean, yeah, that's going to take away from Darius Garland initiating, right? If they are going to get on the interior and kind of play through that high-low situation. I mean, the one thing to look at here is Josh Hart is questionable, legit with an ankle issue. So, I mean, if he doesn't go, maybe you find a different partner here. I like the Garland under. But, I mean, if there's one guy who's going to play through a small injury in a big game, which as much as you can have them in October here, is Josh Hart, right? I mean, I think books do have props up for him. They expect him to go. So, yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I didn't see how serious that was. I thought it was really just like we might rest him, and we have to at least note on the injury report that we might, if we want to rest somebody. So I guess it might be him. Keep an eye on that. Obviously, it voids if he's not in, or you just get the Darius Garland leg at -145, which I'm fine with. I just don't want to bet straight up if I can add something to it. So that is all the time that we have today, though, for you in this one. Continue to follow along. Also have the Play a Props episode as we do each and every weekday moving forward. So until we see you next, happy betting.